Hey everyone, it's me, Rami Marks, your tangled yogi out here in Northern California. Welcome to Where the Butterflies Are. This is a Zentangle inspired class that I'm going to be teaching for the Napa Public Library tomorrow, but I wanted to share it with you as well. So let's talk about the things that we are going to need for class. We're going to be working with a Micron PN pen or a Prismas pen, whichever your favorite Tangle pen is. I have a Jelly Roll 10. You can also use a Jelly Roll 8. This is a white gel pen for adding highlights later on in class. I have a thick nib pen. This is a Identi Pen, and this will be used for the areas where we have a lot of pooling of black ink. You can use a graphics pen, you can use a thicker Micron, you can even use a Sharpie in a pinch. I will be using some erasers in this class because we are going to be doing a lot of graphite work. Now, I have been working with the Mono Zero, and this is from Tombow. I really like this because it's like a pencil, but it has an eraser so that you can add light back in when you might lose it with your graphite. You could also use a kneaded eraser and just mold it to make a point, and that would work as well. Kneaded erasers are wonderful, and I use them a lot. I have a graphite pencil and a blending stump. If you don't have a blending stump, you can go into the bathroom and grab a Q-tip. They work great for a blending stump. You know me, I am a Prismacolor pencil girl. Grab your Prismacolor pencils. We're going to have a lot of fun with these. And hey, if you don't have Prismacolor pencils, don't worry about it. Grab whatever color pencils you have and play along. Now, for those of you who are Prisma people, I will be posting in the class notes all of the colors that I used in class today. So if you want to go and look at them before you start the video, you're welcome to do so. I am going to be working on tiles that are 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches. Super, super smooth. I love a good cardstock. I love vellum. Anything that's really, really smooth to receive colored pencils, I just really enjoy working with. And if you don't have any of those things, just grab your sketchbook and make a square that's 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches and play along. It's all going to work out in the end. All right, well, let's get started with Where the Butterflies Are. Hopefully you've had a chance to gather all of your materials for class today. And many of you know that I like to do a little centering exercise. So let's go ahead and take a comfortable seated position. You can let your hands rest in your lap. And let's just take a few deep breaths together. Breathing in through your nose and gently out through the mouth. And in through the nose, out through the mouth, and one more inhale, and one slow exhale. And I'm going to share a quote with you as we just continue breathing here, and this is by John Wesley, and he says, "Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as you ever can." And just letting that simmer with you for a moment. And I'd like to share with you that this class is dedicated to my mom, who ended her battle with breast cancer on August the 3rd on her own terms. And she was a woman of service. She loved helping people, and I believe that I get that from her. And so I thought about this quote that I saw the other day. It says, "Be all the things that you loved most about the people who are gone." And that is one thing that I am going to carry forward as I think about my mom. And if you have lost somebody, you know that it can be a hard thing, but they live on in our hearts. They are reincarnated in us as we hold them in our memories. And so today's class is dedicated to my mom. And I am looking forward to seeing all these butterflies, and I know she would have loved that. So let's take in one more deep breath right here and let it go with a sigh. And wiggling in your fingertips and toes, gently blinking your eyes open if you haven't already. And let's get started with where the butterflies are. I have a number 2 pencil in my hand here, and we're going to start by creating those dots in our corners here. We're going to build a frame for this piece. And what I'm going to do is I'll start to connect my lines very, very lightly. And today our frame is going to be part of our string. So you'll want to have an eraser handy later on because we're going to lose part of the frame. So I'm just going around just like so and connecting. Now once I have this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to divide the space in half very, very lightly. So I'll come to the middle point right here and divide my space in half, and then I'm going to turn the piece, find the middle point, and divide my space in half. Now once I have that, I'm going to start to build a little bit of a diamond in the center of our piece, and it's going to look a little something like this. I'm going to go from that upper point and just divide the square in half. I'm going to go over to the other side and do the same. Remember, I'm going really nice and lightly. This is just part of our string. It's not going to stay here very long. And then I'm going to go just like that. So you should have something that looks a little bit like this on your paper, and don't worry about it being perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect. We're really just looking for a diamond-like shape in the center. So today we're going to do a tangulation of the tangle biscus. You can see here that we have biscus, and biscus, the fragment of it is basically you have these triangle shapes that step down like a little staircase, and so you can see it creates this really beautiful fan effect. So today what we're going to do is we're going to work on this kind of in a circular motion instead of a square motion. So I've got this nice square in here, and if you want to tangle along with me, you can on a scratch piece of paper. I'm going to go ahead and just create a divided space here, and then I'm going to divide it again through the diagonals. I'm going to go into the center of my space here, and I'm going to create a nice circle with a very, very narrow aura on it. Once I have that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my pencil here, and I'm going to use these lines as a guideline, and I'm going to do a very narrow arc. You can see that I'm really hugging that line and letting it stay very, very close, but it has a little bit of a curve to it. I'm going to come right next to it, and I'm going to create another one that goes and attaches. And you can see that this closes off at the top. Right next to this, I'm going to step down, but I'm not going to touch that line. I'm going to come in, touch the point, do another one that's right next to it, come back to the point, and close it off. I'm going to do another one that steps down, and then another one right next to it that attaches, and close it off. So that's basically the tangle that we're working with here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn my tile. And you can see that I've got this line right here. This is part of our string. All I'm going to do is hug that line with a very soft curve. And then I'm right next to it. I'm going to do the same thing and reattach at the bottom. Close it off. And here comes the next one. So all I'm doing is stepping down a little bit, touch the circle, do one that's a little bit away from this, let it reattach to that first line, and close it off. stepping down a little bit, touch the circle, do another one that's fairly close to it, reattach at the bottom, and close it off. Here we go. See where my next line is right here? I'm going to do that line that hugs, staying really nice and close. Do another one right next to it and let it attach to the circle. Stepping down a little bit, let it touch the circle, one right next to it, and close it off. Stepping down, one right next to it, let it touch the circle, and close it off. So all I'm doing is the same thing over and over again, just with these little step downs. And you can really get into the groove of it because it's got so much repetition. It's really a beautiful tangle. Hugging that line, staying nice and close. You can see it almost looks like a V-like shape as we're getting through it. Stepping down, attach to the circle, close it off. One more time. Each one of these are their own separate V, as it were. Here comes the long one right here, staying really nice and close to the line. Close it off, stepping down, and then one more. And here we go. Just continuing to move on through. Can really get into the zen of this. Nice repetition. Hugging this line, staying nice and close. Stepping down. Let's get that one to connect a little bit. And then the final one right here. So that you have something that looks something like this in your page. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to add just a little bit more to this tangle. So here's where this tangle gets really, really fun. You can see that I've got the tall ones, and then I've got the shorter ones in between. I'm just going to start by going from this corner right here, not to this one, but to the second one. So all I'm going to do is create a diagonal line and let it touch that second one. Then I'll come here and I'll do a diagonal line to let that touch, and I'll do a diagonal line to let that one touch. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. Okay, I'm going to turn my tile. See how I have my tall one here? I'm going to let that come down, not to this one, but to this one. I'm going to let this one go back and touch, and this one go back and touch. Turning the tile, looking for the tall one. Here's the tall one right here. Not to this one, but to this one. Turning, looking for the tall one. Let it come to the second one, not the first one. Looking for the tall one, not to this one, but to this one. And then you do the smaller ones. And you can see what this is doing is it's starting to build a really neat 3D effect. And what I love about this is it's a very forgiving tangle. Just close that one down a little bit. Not to this one, to this one. And so what you end up having is this really cool, almost, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a star, or it's really just this very cool shape. And when we shade it, it's really going to come to life. So let's go ahead and start to bring this into our piece. So you can see I've got my piece in my hand here. Here's the diamond, that I'm working with, I'm just going to turn my piece so now it looks like a square. Okay? I'm going to go into the center here, and I'm just going to divide the space and divide the space one more time. So I've got all these pizza slices going all the way around. Once I have that, we're going to zoom in on this a little bit, and right in the center, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my circle. I'm going to do a soft aura, and here we go. Here's my first line right here. You can see that I've got my pencil in my hand here, and I'm just going to do a very narrow aura of that first line. And I'm going to go all the way around and do just that on each of these lines so that you can really see what I'm up to. It's just a very soft curved aura on each of those lines. And each of these is going to connect to the circle that's in the center. Still just turning the tile so that you end up with this really cool, funky star that's in the center. Really, really fun. Now we're going to start with those auras here. So I'm going to step away just a little bit, and I'm going to come down, and it gets narrower as I come down. Okay? I'm going to come down here, step down just a little bit. Here comes the next one. Notice how each of these is separate. So this will rejoin at the bottom, and then you close it off. I'm going to do one more right here, just stepping down. Here's the next one. Let it rejoin at the bottom, and then you close it off. So notice how each of these at the bottom is separate. Okay? Let's go ahead and do the next one. So here we are, nice and tall, right next to it. Let it rejoin. Close it off at the top. Step down. Let it be its own piece. Rejoin at the bottom. Close it off at the top. Step it down just a little bit. Here comes the next one. Close it off at the top. Turning the tile here. Coming up, see how this one's nice and tall? Rejoin at the bottom, close it off at the top. Curving. One more right here, let it rejoin at the bottom, close it off at the top. Stepping down, curving, let it rejoin, close it off. Turning. Here's my tall one again. Come up to the edge, rejoin at the bottom, close it off at the top. Step it down, touch the circle. Here's the next one. Close it off. Step it down, rejoin at the bottom, close it off at the top. Here comes a tall one. Rejoining at the bottom. Step it down. Close it off. Here comes another one, stepping down. Close it off. Here's a tall one. Close it off. Step it down. Close it off. And just continuing to get into that groove of following these tall lines and short lines. And you can see that that star is developing in the center. I can hear my husband in the background talking to our dog. Sorry about that, guys. Stepping down. And then one more. So now you can see that we've developed our star here. Isn't that so pretty? It's such a pretty tangle. Now I'm going to pick up my pen here and we're going to start to ink these in just a little bit. And so what this is going to do is it's really going to give this a nice graphic feel. And I want you to ignore your string lines when you're doing this. We're just going to focus on these petals. So what I mean to do is I'm going to come into the center, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it an aura. And so this is what it's going to look like. All I'm doing is following the petals and reconnecting them to the center here. It's the only thing that I'm going to do is just the petals. So this is going to give you the opportunity to just really zen out and focus on those triangular pieces. So that's all I'm going to do as I turn the piece. And close it off. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. I'm going to go ahead and do mine. You go ahead and do yours. And then when we come back, we're going to let go of part of our string and we're going to start to add in our special guests. So take your time, relax your shoulders, enjoy what you're doing. Remember, we're here to have fun and relax. I'll see you in a minute. So before we let go of our string here, I'm going to start to do those diagonal lines that are going to start to attach to each other here. And I'm going to start with the tallest one first. Remember, the shortest one does not get that first attachment, okay? So I'm going to start with the tallest one first, and I'm going to go to the second one over here. So all I'm doing is just attaching like so. Then I'll go to the small one, let it attach to the one that's behind it, and then the taller one and let it attach to that one. Okay? All I'm doing is turning the tile, looking for the next tallest one, which is this one right here, and I'm going to let it come over here, and it'll just attach. I'll go ahead and grab this one and this one. Going for the next tallest one, let it attach. Go to the smallest one, and then the second. Just like so. I'm just taking my time looking for the tallest one. Let it attach, attach, and attach. Turning the tile. Here we go. Going right here, going to this one. Over here and over here. Turning, going for this one. One more time. So that you end up with something that looks like this. How cool is that? Isn't that fun? I love this tangle and I think it's really beautiful. It can take a little bit. That's why I went as slow as I did. And you know, there are some tricky parts, but really a fun tangle overall. So I've got my gummy eraser in my hand here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to let go of my string. I just love the way that that looks. I hope that you do too. Now you can still see that I've got my border that I'm going to be working with. And when we come back, we're going to start to bring in our guests of honor. I'm going to turn my piece so that we're working on the diamond here. Now before, when we had our string, our diamonds were really, really deep. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the diamond a little bit shallower here. And there's going to be a little bit of space in between. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by creating a little bit of a triangle in each corner. And I'm going to step back from where the center point was and come back and just make a nice little triangle in each of these corners. So you can see that there's going to be a triangle here. And when I turn it, I'm just going to step back a little bit and create these little triangles in each of the corners. And I'm going to try to make them equidistant. So now I have these triangles, leaving a little bit more space around our star that's in the center. Now, in each of these little triangles that we have here, we're going to build a really beautiful butterfly. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to divide the triangle in half so that it looks a little something like this. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that. At the top of my triangle, I'm going to start by creating a small circle. I'm going to put a U underneath it, and then I'm going to go ahead and do a seed-like shape that comes down at the bottom. Once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create an arc that's going to come up, touch the edge of our triangle. I'm going to let it break my little frame that I have here, do a little wave, and then I'm going to come right back to this point. I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. So all I'm doing is arcing out, coming down towards this edge here, make a little wave, and then I'm going to come back into the center so that you get something that looks a little bit like that. Now once I have that, I'm going to come in nice and close to the butterfly body. I'm going to do an arch and I'm going to let it come up and touch. I'm going to go over to the other side and do the same thing so that I get this really nice soft butterfly. Now you can see that I get all this waviness that's happening on the edge here. That's going to be our new frame once we're done. Okay, so let's do this one more time together. Turn your tile, go to the next one. All we're doing is dividing the space. Up at the top, I'm going to do a nice small circle. Then I'm going to do a U. And then I'm going to do a seed-like shape. From that neck point, I'm going to come out, arch, touch the edge, and drop down. You can see that there's almost a little triangle over there. I'm going to make a little wavy line, just like so, and then I'm going to come right back in again. I'm going to go ahead and go over to the other side, come up, touch the edge, drop down, nice wavy line, and then come back in again. Once I have that, coming down to the body here, make a little arch, let it come up and attach. You can see that it creates a nice indentation there. Same thing over here. And that's going to give us our butterflies. So I'm going to go all the way around and do all of my butterflies in the corners that I've missed. But when we come back, we'll start to ink them in and you'll see how we're going to leave part of the string and lose part of the string. You can see that I've had a chance to bring in those butterflies here, and I'm going to pick up my pen and I'm going to start to ink this in. So I'm just starting with my pen and starting with the head of the butterfly and then creating the seed-like shape. I'll work with the wing here You know, this is kind of where you can let your own creative juices flow, as it were, and change things up if you like. So you can see that I'm coming in, creating that butterfly shape. Now, once I have that, I'm going to take my gummy eraser and I'm just going to remove the outside edge of the butterfly here and the inside edge so that it looks like the butterfly is working on its own. Now, once I've had a chance to go all the way around, you're going to see that I'm going to come back in and I will reestablish the edges in between. So let's go ahead and do this one more time. Just doing the body of the butterfly first, creating that stem or seed-like shape. And I'm not worrying about the antennae for the butterfly. That will come in later. Once I get that, I'm going to go ahead and remove any string around the butterfly itself. But I am going to connect with the frame that I still have. So it'll look like that. Okay? And the same thing will happen in here, and the same thing will happen in here. So go ahead, work with your butterflies, have some fun with this, and then when we come back, we're going to start to introduce a little bit more into the piece. We're going to bring a little bit more of a focal point into the center of this piece. And you may want to have a thicker nibbed pen for this. I happen to have my Identi Pen here, and what I love about the Identi Pen is that it's got this really nice area on the other side that you can do some fine work with, or you can also work with your thicker nibbed pen. Another pen that I really love working with is the Staedtler pen, and this is called a Lumo Color, and what I love about this one is that the color has a tendency to move a little bit more on this one. So grab a thicker nibbed pen, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start by creating a little bit of a crescent moon right here in this corner. And then I'm going to come in and start to do a little bit of pooling of ink in the center. And what this does is it gives this a really nice graphic feel. Really love the way that that looks. This is definitely a technique that I picked up early on in Zentangle and just love having a nice black orb in the center. Another thing that we're going to do with our black pens is we're going to start to work in the center of our butterflies here. And so we're going to pool our ink into the body of the butterfly. And it's going to be a really nice nod back to the center here. And so you can see that by doing this, it defines the shapes and gives it a little bit more interest into those butterflies. You can see that I'm really just taking my time as I pool my ink. And it gives those butterflies a neat graphic feel. So I'm going to go around to all of my butterflies and do the same thing with each of the bodies there. So what I love about this piece is that the outside edges has this really nice flow to it. It doesn't have that strong square line. It has that really nice soft edging to it. And that to me I think is just a really fun way to work with your edges there. So I'm going to pick up some colors here and we're going to start to introduce a new tangle into this, but we're going to be doing it with wallpaper. And wallpaper is where you tangle with the color that you're coloring with. Now I am going to be working with light aqua, which is PC 992, and I'm also going to be working with Copenhagen blue, which is PC 906. You can see that my pencils are really well sharpened up because I'm going to be working on the side of the lead, not the point. I'm going to start with the light aqua first, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start to rub the side of the pencil into the paper in a very light way. You can see that I'm doing little circles, and this is going to create a nice soft mist of color. And I'm really just working in the negative space that's between the butterfly and the star that's in the center. I'm just continuing to let that color work its way around. And you can see by the way that I'm holding the pencil that I'm not holding it in its traditional way. I'm actually holding it with my thumb, my index finger, and my ring finger. I'm just, for the sake of this video, going to do half of the tile with the background so that it doesn't get too long in the tooth. Okay? Once I have this the way that I want it, I'm going to pick up that darker pencil and I'm going to start to develop a shadow that's going to go around each of these butterflies. Now, with this darker color, I'm not pressing hard. The reason for that is because it's got enough pigment in it that it's going to show up right away. So it's just a really light shadow. And oftentimes you will see butterflies or dragonflies near pools of water. And so I was thinking of this as a reflection of a star in a pool of water. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to pick up now my lighter blue, and I'm going to start to blur the edges of where that darker blue is meeting the lighter blue. Now, because the lighter blue has more wax in it, it has a tendency to push around the pigment that you just put down. Many of you know that I really like to layer colors. I find that it is really elegant looking, and it gives a little bit more interest to a piece. I'm just continuing with that idea of little circles pushing around that pigment that I just put down, and you can see that it's already starting to define the edge there. You can see that I'm just kind of running it along and doing little circles. Once I've got it the way that I want it, I'm going to start to pick up a little bit of my white, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. I'm going to pick up a white pencil here, and this is by Prisma. This is PC 938, and it comes in most of your color pencil sets. I'm going to make sure that I've got enough of a point on it so that I can continue working. And for me, I really like to have a smooth background when I'm working, especially if I'm going to do any kind of wallpaper. And you can see that just by using a little bit of white, I get a really nice soft blend. And you can see that I'm just letting it come right up towards the star and just blending it out. Now you're probably saying, well, why didn't you do that at first? And the reason is because I love to do that layering of color, so it really gives this a nice blended feel. I'm just coming in and giving it a really nice soft blended feel. So you can see the difference between this side and this side just by adding in a little bit of that color. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to add just a little bit of this area with a little bit of that darker blue. And then when we come back, we're going to learn a new tangle that I've never seen before, but it's probably been around for a while, and it's called club. So many of you know that I love the Tangle Tipple, which is just orbs. And what I love about the Tangle Club is that it's tipple with auras, and it really makes for a really nice, elegant feel in the background. Now I'm going to be working with my darker blue for this part, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a series of orbs. So I'm just going to bring in a series of orbs in here. And you're going to see that I'm going to offset them a little bit. Just like so. Now once I've got them the way that I want them, you can see that my pencil is really nice and sharp. I'm going to go around and I'm going to start to do auras. And some of these auras are going to bump into each other, and that's intentional. I love the idea of almost like a ripple in the water, as if it was raining. So you can see that these are a little bit further set apart, and I think that that's a good thing. I really want to see all of these have a different kind of feeling near them. So you can see that I'm just going through and I'm auraing. An aura is just what you think it is. It's an echo line that goes around each of these orbs. And I love the way that it starts to fill up that background. It makes an excellent wallpaper piece. Cat had my tongue there for a minute. And so you can see that that really starts to fill up the background. It has a nice feeling to it, similar to the way that we use Printemps in wallpaper, but just something a little bit different. Now, one of the things that I like to do with Club is I'm going to go into each of these orbs now with my darker blue and go very, very lightly and just start to shade half of each of these orbs. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that lighter blue, and I'm going to start to blur the edge a little bit and leave a little bit of a light source in that upper left-hand side of the orb here. And what you can see is it gives it a little bit of a gem-like feel, but it's still quiet enough so that it's just wallpaper. It's not going to be too contrasting next to our other pieces. I just love the way that that looks. And if you like that, you can also pick up a little bit of your white and just add in a little bit of a pop of white in that upper left hand area of each orb, just to give it a little bit of a blend. But isn't that so pretty, the way that that starts to fill the space? It just feels like rain and water, which I really love. So go ahead, play with Club. I'm going to go all the way around the piece and do just that. Isn't that so cool? Love the Tangle Club. All right, so we're going to let go of the blues here, and we're going to start to work in some warmer colors. I'm going to be working with PC1002. This is the yellowed orange. And then I also have orange in my hand, which is PC918. And then finally, I'm going to be working with terracotta, which is PC944. Now remember, if you're not working with Prismacolors, what I'm looking for is a warm brown, a really nice light orange, and a warm yellow. Okay? Now, the way that we're going to be doing some shading here is I'm going to start with that lighter yellow first. And I'm going to start by working in the largest pieces here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with a little bit of that yellow, and I'm going to establish a really nice soft foundation. I'm going to only work inside of the petals, not inside of these areas where we have the line that goes back. Once I have that, I'm going to pick up a little bit of orange and I'm going to start to work my way through. And you can see that by having that foundation of yellow, that orange just glides onto the scene here. And then once I have the orange down the way that I want it, I'm going to pick up a little bit of that terracotta and I'm going to start to bring in a little bit of that terracotta closer to the bottom. I love the earthy look of these colors together. It's not something that I do very often, and I've been really challenging myself to really play with colors in a different way. So I'm going ahead now and bringing back in that yellow, and I'm going to soften up where the line of demarcation is between the orange and the yellow up top, and then I'm going to let it glide back into the terracotta. And the reason why I'm doing this is because that yellow has a ton of wax in it, and it's going to act as a perfect blending agent. And you can see that that just gives that so much energy. Now, if you want to pick up a little bit of your white pencil, make sure that it's clean. You can come up to the top and give a little blur to where that orange is meeting the yellow. And you can see how pretty that is. So I'm going to go all the way around and do just that. You go ahead and do yours. Really enjoy the process of working with color. It's really going to make this whole tangle come alive. I mean, you can see just by adding that little bit, look at the difference here. Isn't that so cool? Color is amazing about how it brings these tangles to life. Isn't that such a fun tangle? I hope you're enjoying it and loving shading it. It's so much fun. So we're going to start to carry our color. And so what this is going to look like is we're going to take those yellows and oranges and bring them out into our butterflies that we have on the edge here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with that light yellow first. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that. And I'm just going to come in and dust in the wings with that lighter yellow first. You can see that I'm not being overly cautious with it. I'm just jumping in and then jumping out. I'm going to take a little bit of that orange and start to bring that orange underneath the wing so that it gives it a little bit of a shadow. And I'm going to go ahead and give a little bit of a shadow right on the top of this wing as well. Just let it come over into these little indentations that we have here. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that yellow again and start to blur the orange and the yellow together so that I get a really nice soft layering of color. I'll do the same thing over here. And then if you want to, you can pick up a little bit of that white, make sure there's no blue on it, and just get a nice buttery effect between these two. Just getting right into it. Now once I've got that, you can see it's really starting to glow. I'm going to pick up a little bit of my brown. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by working my way out from the center, and I'm going to do a printemps that comes in and hits the edge here. You'll see what I mean. So I'm going to come up and out, go right over the top, and do a nice printemps right in there. Now once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create these little petals that are going to come down in towards the center. And you're going to see that I'm going to round them off. And I'm going to pull some of that brown into the edges. And I'm going to do it right behind where that printemps is as well. And you can see that that develops a really nice feeling inside of that wing. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, coming up, nice printemps, and then once again developing those little petals. And if you need to resharpen your pencil, you can resharpen your pencil at any time. Just love the way that that looks on the wings there. And then finally, what I'm going to do inside of the butterfly for detail is I'm going to bring down these lines and put a little dot and do two shorter lines on either side. And I'll do it on the other side as well. And that's going to give these butterflies a really nice design pattern, all using different ways of working with Zentangle. Okay, so I'm going to go around and do all of my butterflies in that way. You go ahead and do yours and have fun. I'm just loving those butterflies. They are so fun. So we're going to pick up a little bit of our pens here, and we're going to put in their antennae. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and start to create these soft antennae that are going to go right over the wallpaper to make the wallpaper look like it's underneath. And you know, some of these antennae might go underneath the main tangle too, and that's just fine. I love the idea of the layering that happens here. So you can see that I'm just going around and putting in the antennae so that our butterflies can fly. I'm just taking your time with those and having some fun. It's just a little line with a teardrop coming off of them, and this one's going to go right underneath that one as well. So I just love the idea of them going underneath and above, and really you can play with that. Now, you may know that I do love to work with graphite next to color. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my graphite pencil, and I have a blending stump. Now if you don't have a blending stump, you can go into the bathroom and grab a Q-tip. They work great for this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start to do a little bit of light shading with my graphite pencil and let it just dust down. You can see I'm working on one of the taller ones here. And I'm going to zoom in on that so you can really see it. And then I'm going to use my blending stump here and start to give this a little bit of a softening. And so once I've got that, I'm going to move on to the next one, and I'm going to just add a very, very soft dusting and bring a little bit of that blur. Now you'll notice that I'm trying to keep a little bit of that line there of white. You want to make sure that you don't lose too much of it. You can have, you know, a little bit of gray, and what's great about this is that you can always come in with an eraser and erase it up and bring back light in there. So this is one of those things where your eraser is really a tool. It's not just for fixing an opportunity, right? So I hope that you'll play and do that shading and let it go all the way through. You're going to start to see lots of dimension in here. Okay, so I want to enable you here. I have one of these really cool Mono Zero Tombow erasers. Now you can see in some of these I lost a little bit of light, and these are wonderful tools. You can pick these up at any of your favorite art stores, and you can come back in and just start to bring in a little bit of light back into some of these pieces where you might have lost a little bit of light. You can see how I'm just walking it down and just bringing a little bit of light in there. These are wonderful tools. You can pick these up. Mono Zero Tombow eraser. Now the other thing too is that you can always form your little gummy eraser and do the same thing. I just like the mono because it's a little bit more controllable. You can see that I've lost a couple of spots, and this just helps to bring back in highlights, which is really wonderful for bringing contrast and interest into a piece. So I thought I would mention that in the video because who doesn't need another tool, right? All right, so I'm going to take a little bit of my graphite and I'm just going to bring a little shadow right underneath where my butterfly is here. And this is just to give this a little bit of definition here. And I'll take a little bit of my blending stump here and just give it a little bit of that kind of foggy feeling, almost mysterious on the outside. And you can see how that just gives a little bit more definition. Notice the difference over here versus over here. It's just the little things that we can do to make that really interesting. Now some of you, have really great ideas where you like to add dots into things, and if you want to add maybe some dots along the outside edge, you could do some dots in here. Just to give it a little bit of interest and a little bit of whimsy. So I'm going to go ahead and play and add a little bit around the outside edges. You go ahead and do yours as well. The other thing I might like to do with my butterflies here is I'm going to do a little bit of rounding right inside of this area in here where the wings are meeting. It just gives some emphasis to these butterflies and just really makes them have a more elegant appeal. So go around, have some fun, just rounding off those little edges in here. And just getting in there. I'm just really liking the way that that's looking, so have some fun with that. To add some final touches to the background, I really love to make my color pencils look like watercolors, and I'm going to pick up Lime Peel Green, which is PC 1005. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to randomly choose some places to add just a soft dusting of some of that lime peel green, just to give it some interest. You're going to see me, just move in and add a little bit here and there. Let me go ahead and zoom in on this. And what this does is it has a tendency to electrify that background and really give it a unique quality. I love taking that green and bringing it right over the blue and giving it that softness. And that lime peel green has a lot of wax in it as well, so it does have a tendency to move some of that pigment and really give it some interest. So I'm just working my way through here. And I love that color pencils, you have so much control over what you're working with, whereas sometimes with watercolor, it's a little bit more random. You can come in and go, oh, I think I want a little something here or a little something there, and you don't want to disturb the pigment too much. Well, it's really easy to do with a little bit of your color pencil. And then I'm also going to pick up a little bit of my white jelly roll here. And I'm going to start to go where the butterflies are and just give this a few dots just to give it a little bit of a sheen on the body here. Now you can put in eyes if you want to. I don't generally do that with my butterflies, but I know a lot of people like to do that. I like to kind of leave it as it's implied that they have them and they don't really need me to put them in. But I love the way that that looks. I think that gives it a really nice softness. And if you want to come in and give a little bit of sheen inside of some of the club that you did, you can just randomly go around and give some sheen to some of the club and really give that a little bit of sparkle. You're going to see that I'm going to stay away from where my antennas are because I don't want it to interrupt that too much. But I do think that adding a little bit of sheen is kind of fun, and any time I can pick up that white pen just to have some play time is always a plus. As you can see, I'm just randomly moving around and adding in a little bit of sheen just to give it some interest and some juiciness. So go ahead, have some fun with that, and I'll see you in a minute. So I'm just taking a look around and seeing anything that might need some cleaning up, like adding in a little bit more ink into where the antennae is, or, any places where you feel like your lines need a little bit of love. And then finally, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my chop right down here. And this just signifies that I've had a chance to kind of complete the piece and to take a moment of gratitude for all the hard work that we did, and also just to take a moment to notice that you did take a time out from the rest of the world and do something that was good for yourself. Now, I do want to show you another version of this that I did where I actually took my color piece and I copied it in black and white, and then I added a little bit of sepia to it, and I thought that that came out really nicely as well. So there's more than one way to actually do this piece. It just lends itself really beautifully to both black and white and in color. So if you enjoyed the class today, please give the class a thumbs up or hit the subscribe button, or even better, leave a really nice review in the review section so that I can see your comments. I always like to see what you think about the class. And then if you want to share the class with a friend, that would be great, because more people doing Zentangle in color means more people coming to visit us and doing Zentangle in color with us, which I would truly love. And I would love to see your butterflies. Please head over to the Tangled Yogi Art Community page on Facebook and share your work with us. If you're not part of our group over there, all you have to do is just answer a couple of security questions so we know you're not a robot. And we'd love to see what you're creating out there. And I know that I would love to see these butterflies fluttering around, and perhaps maybe a random act of Zentangle leaving some of these butterflies for people to find. I know that my mom would really like that as well. All right, so that's it for me. I'm Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi. Thanks so much for joining us today. I look forward to tangling with you soon.